Okay, today is Sunday. It's Heish Oder. And it's our Parsha class with Hashem's help. And I gave you a stack of 14 papers. Just trust that I've got a stack of another 40 papers sitting in my house that are going to collect dust until some miracle happens and they're redeemed. The topic of this week is the Tzitz. As you know, of course, and I'll give you the long version of the introduction. The Rebbe says that the book of Exodus, Sefer Shmois, is called Chumash HaGiyula, the book of redemption. Which means from the first word of Eile Shmeis B'nai Yisrael until the last words of the entire Sefer, right? But whatever how the pasuk finishes, Anan Adeshem Ala Mishkan Yomam V'Eisach V'Eish Laila Bey Le'inei Kol Yisrael. Whoever Sefer Shmois finishes, every single word of this entire Sefer is called Giyula. And as I've told you repeatedly, that it's interesting that the names that Lahavdil Goyim gave to the Chumashim are very correct. Except for Genesis. Genesis means beginning, birth. And in Torah, Sefer Bereshis is not called Genesis. Sefer Bereshis is called Sefer Hayosha, the book of the fair, on the Avos and the Shvat. But besides for that, Exodus is a credible name, Leviticus is a critical name, Numbers is a critical name, and Deuteronomy. I once looked up in the dictionary what Deuteronomy means. Deuteronomy means repetition. And repetition. And Sefer Dvarim is Mishnah Torah. So the names, the Goyish translations are legitimate, are correct. And Sefer Shmois, we call it Shmois, which means a name, which is only the beginning of the Sefer. It's called the Chazal Chumash HaGiyula, the book of redemption. And of course the question is asked from both extremes. Number one, it doesn't start with redemption, it starts with exile. Number two, the redemption is in Pashas Boya B'Shalach. The first three, possibly four Pashas in the Chumash deal with redemption. From Yisrei, Mishpatim, Truma, Tetzavah, Kesisav, Yaakov, Pkudei, we're already free. So the Rebbe, of course, makes that incredible point that he loves to make so frequently, that a Jew is not free because he has no master. A Jew is free when he's a servant of the Eibshter. And a Jew is not a servant of the Eibshter when Hashem gives him the instructions, the Torah, which is Yisrei Mishpatim. A Jew is free when he actually serves Hashem. And serving Hashem is only when you build a Beis HaMikdash and you have a house and a place to worship the Eibshter. So the redemption begins with the exile, because you need the Tzedek Aliyah, like it says in Midrash Chazal. The beginning of the Gula is the Golus itself. And redemption doesn't finish when we leave Egypt. Redemption finishes when we get the Torah, and it doesn't even finish when we get the Torah. It only finishes when V'shachanti b'seichom, when we actually build Hashem a home in this world as represented by the Mishkan, by the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore it's in fact true, says the Rebbe in the Siches, that the entire Sefer Shmois, the entire book of Exodus, is about Geula, redemption, because we're not free until we're servants of Hashem and are in fact able to serve Him. B'beisei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Eibishter's home. And this is through building the Beis HaMikdash, which is what the second half of Sefer Shmois talks about, the last 5 parshas. Truma, Tetzavah, Kitisav, Yaakov, Pkudei, are about building the Beis HaMikdash. Now, building the Beis HaMikdash, in that circumstance, was designed by the Eibishter himself. Mikra, Mumaylo. Hashem taught how to build the mobile house of God, which of course would then be updated by Shlomo HaMelech in the permanent home of the Eibishter, and updated further by Ezra and Nehemiah in building of the permanent second home of the Beis HaMikdash, Bayis Sheni. But in the Chumash, you have Hashem gives instructions to build the Mishkan, the mobile, the transient, the temporary house of the Eibishter. But along with the instructions of how to build the Beis HaMikdash, there's all kinds of halachas about the Big Day Kohuna, the garment of the Kohenim wore. Last year we had the classes in somebody's home. We also had 2 nights, so we had more time. So we learned the beginning of the Parsha of Big Day Kohuna, if I'm not mistaken, the idea of L'chavod L'Sefaris, that the priestly garments were L'chavod L'Sefaris, for honor and for beauty. And we brought there's 3 different names for the clothes. Big Day Kodesh, 3 different names for the clothing in the Beis HaMikdash that the Kohenim wore. One of the interesting ideas that you have in the Ramban, to me this is quite compelling, is that the Ramban writes, of all things, that Ramban writes this, that the big day kahuna that the Kohanim wore by the design of the Eibishter reflected the big day sarara, the dress of royalty of that era. And the Even Ezra says the same thing, I believe. Now that the Even Ezra says it, no, you could expect it of the Even Ezra. But the Ramban, Makubal should say this is already very uncomfortable. Why? Because if it's part of God's timeless Torah, which was written before creation, how could you explain that the outfits reflected a particular time and place, and coincidentally the time in which the Mishkan was given, the Torah was given? You understand? So, but the Ramban says that Lakar Doseferos means that the big day Kahuna reflected the big day Shrada of that time. So the answer, we discussed this at length, is that the idea of the big day Kahuna, the idea of Yiddishkeit is that Akel Asa Yafa Ve'ite. Everything happens in a certain schedule, in a certain order. And many in Yonim and Teda, not just this, reflect a similar model. Something happens, Yiddishkeit reveals a new Gilui, and in the time that it's revealed, there seems to be a simile for it in the world, but it's not the pshat that the simile for it in the world is the basis for the way the Eibush gives us the instructions, but the other way around, because the Eibush was going to give the Torah at a particular time, and he was going to teach us certain mitzvahs in a particular circumstance. It is for this reason that the Eibush arranges that at the time that this revelation happens in the world, this should be known. In other words, the reason in the world a Sarim dressed this way is because the Eibush wanted, when he would give us the mitzvah of Big Day Kahuna, we should be able to relate to it. This is a vort, and I brought you a raya to it from a different circumstance. Now, over the few years that I've been doing Parsha classes, I did a class on the ephod, on the apron. We do a class on the apron, you automatically do a class on the choshen, also sort of a breastplate. So this year, when I was preparing the class, I was determined to do the me'il. I really wanted to do the me'il. The reason I wanted to do the me'il is I know nothing about it. The Tzitz habachabisel golad tamo. But I couldn't find a satisfactory maimir. I think there are maimarim, but I couldn't find them. I spent 45 minutes looking for a maimir this morning. Mamish. Just looking for a maimir, just deciding what pasuk to teach. So we're doing the tzitz. Okay, you all know that the Kohanim wore 4 garments. Every Kohen wore 4 garments. I guess you would call them knickers. Michnasayim, short pants. Mimasnayim v'adirechayim. They went from their thighs to their knees, and they were tied together with a shnidl, with a bow. A tunic, a shirt, which was tailored to their size and went down approximately till their ankles. A gartel, and the tunic was made from a fine linen. Believe me, it wasn't warm up there on that mountain when you were dressed Big Day Kahuna. Everything was made from linen. It wasn't warm at all. It was freezing. Kohanim were getting sick from the cold. There was a special room in the Beis HaMikdash called Beis HaMikdash where Kohanim Pasha went to thaw out in the middle of the day. They walked around barefoot on stone. A gartel. The gartel was huge. It was 32 amas long. It was longer than the length of this room, and they would just wrap it around themselves and wrap it around themselves. They looked like they were wearing a fire hose. And a mikbas, a hat. The hat of the common kohen was shaped like a teepee, like a tall hat, like a birthday hat. It was made from cloth. It was 16 amas long, and they would wrap it. That's how they would wrap it. They would tie it, but it had a tall, conical shape. That was the mikbas. In this stack, you have a Shalom HaKadosh, which says something very, very, very counterintuitive. The Shalom HaKadosh says that the 4 Big Day Kahuna Hedyot, the regular garments, go on the 4 oisias of Shem Havaya, of Shem Yudke Vavke. Then there were 4 additional garments, which only the Kohen Godol wore. The first was the me'il. The me'il was a poncho made of blue wool. It was completely open on the sides. You understand? They had a very, very strong collar, a very strong neck. It shouldn't tear. And it went till the shoulders, and it went almost as far as the ksenis. If you looked at the bottom of the Kohen Godol, you could see at the bottom a little bit the ksenis, the tunic, which went till the floor, and then you can see the me'il with the bells, with the whatever it is, 32 and 32, whatever it is, iron bays, 36 and 36 bells and pomegranates, right, equals 72, the front and back. That's what the Kohen Godol wore. On top of this poncho came the ephod and the choshen, the apron, which was worn up backwards. The apron usually wore in the front. He wore it in the back, but also like an apron below his waist, with a gadol, which tied the me'il down onto its place. And the straps of the apron went up to the top. On top he had two stones with the names of the shvatim, connected to little chains, attached to the breastplate, which he wore mamash on his breast. He didn't wear it in the stomach, he wore it up here, tied with two threads of blue at the bottom, attaching it to the ephod in the back. So it was tied down. His hat was of a different shape. He didn't wear a conical hat, he wore a turban. It's called a mitznefes. It was made from the same material, was the same exact material, but instead of being made tall, it was made low and steady and firm on his head, like you see Arab turbans. And then he had the tzitz. The tzitz was was a piece of gold that ran from ear to ear, according to Rashi. And in the center it said Kedes Lashem. And it was made of gold, and it had blue threads. Of course, the rabbis all argue about how many blue threads. 1, 3, 6, don't ask. I mean, rabbis, their great contribution to Torah is differences of opinion. And as you learn in these classes, that's reason to celebrate. That's not to get disappointed. That's the whole reichkeit of Torah. The diversity, as you see from these shiurim that we do here. And that made the 8 big day kodesh. So the Shalach Kodesh said that the 8 big day Kohen Godol, this is against Shem Adnai. Al Nun Yud. Isn't that weird? The regular Kohen's clothing are higher, Shem Havaya, because they were white. Chesed. And the Kohen Godol's clothing, which were gold officially, are Gevura, which is Malchus, Shem Adnai. And the Tzitz is the letter Aleph. As they schreibt it, the Shalom writes, the Tzitz is the letter Aleph. It's the highest Madrege. You'll see soon that the tzitz was not even considered a garment. It was considered an adornment, a piece of jewelry. The Vashon said he wore 7 outfits, 7 garments, and a piece of jewelry. It's called 8, but really, the tzitz was not a garment at all. It was an adornment. It was a decoration. And the Ibn Ezra writes, this was the minhag in those days, that the honorable men used to wear turbans, and on top of the turban there was a little gold plate that was decorative. So the Kohen Godol wore on his metzach, on his forehead, a gold plate. Now we hold, as Rashi says, that it wasn't on top of the turban. The turban was up here, like a yarmulke here. And down here was the plate. There was a little tiny space. And the Kohen Godol used to wear tefillin shal rosh. Wore tefillin all day long. Tefillin shal yad he could not wear on the hand, because there would be a chatzitza between the mitznefes and his hand. But tefillin shal rosh, the Kohen Godol used to wear tefillin shal rosh. And it was beina mitznefes v'atzitzi. Little tiny tefillin. They said tiny little tefillin. So our Shia tonight, with the help of God Almighty, is going to be on the tzitz. In other words, of the 8 big day kohanim, we're learning about the tzitz. Now we could sit on the tzitz for hours and hours and hours, because there's many questions. We're going to ask 3 questions. So let's read the psukim. Page 1 at the top. V'yasisa tzitz, you should make a head plate. Zahav Torah, pure gold. Upitachta alov. And you should press out into it pituchei chaisam, a carving which is called chaisam, which is like stamping, sealing into the gold. Kedesh la'avaya, the 2 words, Kedesh la'Hashem, holy to God. Now, you know that there were stones in the Beis HaMikdash that had letters carved into them. But the stones in the Beis HaMikdash had the letters carved inwards. In other words, it was not chok teiches. When you looked at the Kohen Godol's breastplate, it said the Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and so forth. And over here also we had the Shisha Mishmeisam 11 Achas, Veshmei Shisha Nisarim 11 Hashenis. He had over here Avnei Shayim, 6 names over here, 6 names over here. They were inverted into the stone. You understand? The letters were not sticking out. The letters were sticking in. What would be the difference if the letters would stick out or sticking in? If the letters stick in, they actually carved out the letters. If the letters would be sticking out, they took away around the letters and left the letters over. This is called chok teiches. This is called cutting around so the letter remains. Apidin teira, that's possible. For a Sefer Torah Tzilam Mezuzah, you have a black blotch of ink. You can't scratch away the area around and leave over the letter, because you have to write the letter. The same was true that the Shem Nadim Elohim, that to write the letter in the stone, so they carved the letters inward. So if you looked at these stones, the letters were inverted, they were pushed in. or the tzitz was faket. Why? It was a thin plate of gold, and they pushed it from the back, so that the Kedesh LaHashem was not inverted in the gold, it protruded from the gold. You understand that Pituche Chesem Kedesh LaHavaya, when you looked at the Kohen Godol, you could read, right, left to right. My left to right is your right to left. Kedesh LaHashem. Then it says, V'samta eisi al psul techeles, you put this tzitz on top of a piece of blue wool, v'haya ala mitznefes, so it should be above the mitznefes. El mul pnei mitznefes, here should be opposite the front of the mitznefes. And then the pasuk says, v'haya al meitzach aharon, and this plate of gold was on the forehead, on the metzach of Aaron HaKohen. V'nosa Aaron esaveina kadoshim. So Aaron would carry the sins associated with karbanos. That's the title of these words. The sins associated with karbanos. In other words, the tzitz was machaper. The tzitz was able to atone for sins, but which kind of sins? That's do with tumas mikdash v'kadeshav. Do with karbanos. And there's a huge shturim Chazal and the Gemara what this means, and then they settle on what's called tumah b'nei kever ataheim. A person became tamei from an unknown grave. He doesn't know he's tamei, so the tzitz was meratza for this. And the Jewish nation will sanctify for all the gifts of holiness, of karbanos, that they give to the Eibishter. They'll be on his forehead all the time, to be desired by the Eibishter, lifnei havaya, before or in front of or higher than Shem Havaya. That's it. The tzitz gets 3 psukim. Don't feel bad for the tzitz, because the kseinis gets 3 words. V'shibat sakseines sheish. That's it. And the mitznefes gets 3 words. Vasisa mitznefes teish. And the avnet gets 4 words. V'avnei tasa ma'aseh. You see what I'm showing you? So don't feel the tzitz gets 3 psukim. This head plate that the Kohen Godol wore is described in 3 psukim. As I said to you, you can ask many questions. The issues, the 3 questions we're going to focus on is, number 1, what was the idea of the tzitz? What did it represent spiritually speaking, this head plate? Number 2, when it says in the pasuk Kedesh LaHavaya, holy to God, on who is it going? What is holy to God? Who is holy to God? This is probably the most interesting question. The one that I learned the most in preparing today's class, because I knew the least about this. What's Kedesh LaHashem? What is Kedesh LaHashem? What? Hashem is holy to Hashem. What does it mean? Holy to God. Who and what is holy to God? What do you? Kedesh LaHashem goes on something. It's like you hang up a tag. It says, this is an elite item, yeah. But there's no item. There's just a tag. A tag by itself is meaningless. It has to represent something. The tzitz said on it, holy. What? The tzitz itself, holy to God. So what is holy to God? Who? There's different opinions. That's one of them. So you could be a rabbi too, but there's other rabbis. Okay. And the third question, and this is an interessante diuk, it's mamish a diuk which you would find in Chassidus, is in Pasuk Lamed Ches it says, "V'haya metzach Aharon," it'll be on the head of Aaron HaKohen, and then in the next line it says, "V'haya mitzchoy tamid," it'll be on his forehead. Now, bepashtos, mitzchoy also means the metzach of Aaron HaKohen, right? But the first time it says metzach Aharon, the second time it says mitzchoy. So first of all, there's no need to say it twice. Saying it once would be sufficient. What's the reason for saying it twice? And there's also the diuk of how come it says mitzach Aharon and mitzchoy. And the Rabbeinu B'chaya has a diuk was passed for a Maimer Chassidus and explaining metzach Aharon and mitzchoy zeh gishmak zeh shein. There are other things that will emerge as we learn, as this class evolves, and the clock has mercy. More details will emerge. But we are going to focus on these 3 questions. Number 1, what is the idea? What was the symbolism? What is the meaning of the tzitz? Number 2, Kedesh LaHashem goes on what? What is holy? And number 3, what is the meaning of metzach Aaron and mitzchei tamid? And we begin, Rabbi say, on page 6. Please. We're starting off with the Rabbeinu B'chaya's introduction, and this is verbatim. It's a direct quote from the Rambam's Yad HaChazok. Okay? Vasisa, the first arrow, Vasisa Tzitzov Ter, says the Rambam, Kach Hoya Maisa Tzitz. This is how the tzitz was made. Oisa Tas Shel Zahav, they would make a plate, like a blech, a thin plate of gold. Rochov Shtei Etzbos, that was the height of 2 fingers. 2 fingers, 4 fingers is a tefach, yeah? So 2 fingers is a half a tefach. Chveis is an inch and a half. This 2 fingers. Umakif miyazin liyazin, and it went from ear to ear, which meant that if you had different Kohenim Godolim with different sizes, had to make new tzitzes. The tzitz had to fit, right? The Koshen Mishpat was the same for every Kohen Godol. But the Ephod and the Me'il, they had to make a different one for every Kohen Godol, because the clothing had to be midei vad, they had to fit exactly. And they had a Kohen Godol was short and tall, fat and skinny, right? So the tzitz had to be from ear to ear. The guy had a bigger head, needed a bigger tzitz. So they had to make more than one, right? The case of Alav Shnei Shitim. And it was written in 2 lines. You see, we all imagine Kodesh LaHashem written like this. It wasn't how it was. It was written in 2 lines. In other words, you had a top line and a bottom line. Okay, listen to this. Kodesh Lamata and LaHashem Lamayla. The word Kodesh was written below, and the word LaHashem was written above. Now, how does that sound? That it didn't say Kodesh LaHashem, it said LaHashem Kodesh, which doesn't make any sense at all. So there's many opinions. There's a Ravid, I believe, who says that Lamayla Lamata doesn't mean top and bottom, it means right or left. If you looked at the tzitz, on the right side it said Kodesh, on top. On the left side it said LaHashem, on the bottom. So as you look at a mezuzah, sometimes the mezuzah starts in the middle of a line and continues the next line. So Kodesh was at the end of the top line, and LaHashem was at the beginning of the bottom line. So in fact, Kodesh was above LaHashem, but not directly above it, because they didn't want Kodesh to be on top of LaHashem. So the first line ended with the word Kodesh. The second line began with the word LaHavaya. So Kodesh was on top of LaHavaya. It was before Havaya, but it wasn't on top of it. The Rambam is mashma that it was bepashtas. Kodesh LaHavaya was a Kodesh was beneath LaHavaya. But if I'm not mistaken, the Ravid says that it was not directly one on top of the other. Kodesh was actually over to the right, and LaHashem was over to the left. So Kodesh was before LaHavaya, but not above LaHavaya. That's how you have to understand it. Okay? Now, V'hayu ha'esis boiltes, and the letters protruded outwards, as I explained to you before, as opposed to the Avnei Shem, Navim Luim, which were carved in. V'hayu nakov shtei k'tzeis, if it had a hole at either end. Or psil techelas lamata mimenu nekev nekev, there was a psil, a thread that went from one hole to the next around the back. She niksha b'psil keneged ha'erev, it should be tied with a thread behind the nape of the neck. Rashi says that there were actually 6 threads. What's the cheshbon of 6? You had a hole in the center, and a hole on either side, and the thread went through the hole and came out the other side. So every thread becomes double. You understand? 1 in the middle, front and back, 2 on either side, front and back, and it was all tied up in a big knot. Rambam disagrees, and the Rambam writes, it's on page 6, which on page 5, we're not going to read it. He said it was actually 1 thread, it wasn't even 2. How? The thread ran through the back of the tzitz. You have a gold plate. On the back, the thread ran through along the back and came out of the hole on this side. It was actually 1 piece of material. Ran around and was tied in the back and didn't go over the top at all. In other words, Rambam disagrees with Rashi in as many possible ways possible. He disagrees with the number of threads and how they were tied and how they were folded and where they were. So what's new? Okay, now, Pirush HaRavid continues the Rabbeinu Bechai quoting the Ravid Zel L'Shein. This is his opinion. Zal. Kodesh Lamed Milmato B'Seif Shura L'Shein. What I told you before. Kodesh Lamed was at the end of the first line. L'Kach Koreh L'Mato L'Fi Shu B'Sof. And L'Mat doesn't mean below, it means at the end of the first line. And Hashem L'Maylo was Breish Shita Shniya. The word Hashem was the beginning of the second line. So Kodesh Hashem was actually written in order. But the Hashem was not underneath the Kodesh because it was pushed over to the right. The Koreh L'Mayla, it's called L'Mayla L'Fishu Al Reish HaMa'ayin V'Samach Lei. When you look at something, you look from right to left. Because he was written from right to left. So first you saw La Hashem and then you saw Kodesh, even though Kodesh was a little bit higher than it. This is the description of how the tzitz looked. It tells us nothing about its meaning and nothing about its purpose and then so forth and so on. It simply tells us what the tzitz looked like. And I'm going to request for all of you to be so kind and go back to page 1. And I have very sad news for you. We have no Rashi on this one. There are Rashis, but we're going to start with the Rashbam, with Rashi's grandson, which is on the right side of page 1. Many of the commentaries ask, what's the meaning of this word tzitz? What does it mean, tzitz? What does it mean, tzitz? Who ever heard such a word, tzitz? And there's several different translations. There are 3, in fact, I think. V'asisa tzitz You should make it tzitz, says the Rashbam. Lefisha neisnei metzach, it was placed on the forehead. Mekeim re'iyad neyadim, the most conspicuous place. Any person looks at a Kohen Godol, the first thing you see is his farad. You see the tzitz. Okay, karoi tzitz k'mei meitzitz. It's called tzitz, means from the most noticeable thing, like meitzitz menacharakim, when you see through the crack. You looked at a Kohen Godol, the first thing you saw was the tzitz. It was so overt, it was so obvious, it was so right in front of you. You look at a person, you look at his face. The first thing you see when you look at the Kohen Godol was the tzitz. So tzitz means an entity of looking at, something which you saw as soon as you took a glance at the Kohen. Okay? The Rashbam says the word mashkif also for the word hashkafa, to see. When you look at a door, the first thing you look at is the top of the door. So he translates tzitz the same way. Okay, kach nira be'ele. Kedesh la Hashem. Right? Holy to God. What is holy to God? So the Rashbam says holy to God goes on what was below. The Kohen Godol is carrying stones. On his shoulders he has 2 stones. On his chest he has 12. On each of those sets of stones there's the names of all the Shvatim. The tzitz is above, right? Tzitz is up here. The stones are here and here. Kedesh Lashem is saying what is below is holy. The Jewish people are holy. That's how he translates it. Kedesh Lashem ala eifed v'ala cheshen ha'yoshemet b'nei Yisrael. The shoulder pads of the Kohen Godol and the chest of the Kohen Godol have the names of the 12 Shvatim written on them twice. Lizikadon as a commemoration. Shekipar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Alavein HaKadishim. That Hashem has already atoned for the sins associated with Karbanos. Shakdishu b'nei Yisrael. That the Jewish people are going to sanctify. So Kodesh LaHashem is that above the names, higher than the names of the Jewish people, there's an announcement that what these people will do is holy. Kodesh LaHashem, what these Yidden are going to do is holy. Yidden are going to bring Karbanos. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be mistakes that are unpreventable because they're mistakes based on ignorance, mistakes associated with Karbanos. So the announcement is made. The Kohen Godol walks to the Beis HaMikdash. He didn't pick up his chalaf, he didn't shecht, he didn't do hakrava and agosha and shchita and zrika and nothing. It's already holy. So Kedesh LaHashem is going on the Jewish people, and specifically the karbanos that the Jewish people are going to bring in the house of God. So the Rashbam's translation is Kedesh Hashem goes on Yidden. Okay, okay. Kedesh Lavaya means Kleimer. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Maratz Amen HaKadosh, the Eibishter is accepting the sins of Karbanis, like I explained to you before. This goes on Tumas Mikdash v'Kadoshav, Tumas Atehim, Tumah, that a Yid brings a carbon b'Tumah which you're not allowed, and he has no idea he's Tameh, because it was a Tumas Atehim. It's one of the Mefashim says later, the Rabak says later, it's Pachas Mishegig, you can't even call it a mistake. And the Karbanis, the Tzitz was Meratz. So what did we learn in the Rashbam? The translation of the word tzitz means something that you see very obviously. And the inyan of Kodesh LaHavaya is that it made the Jewish people holy. It announced the holiness of the Jewish nation and specifically the Karbanos. Now we do the Even Ezra, which is on the left. But you have to turn first of all to page 2. Page 2 in the Even Ezra. You have Even Ezra Orach v'Akotzer. So we're doing the Orach first. On the left side of page 2, it's the centerpiece near the bottom where I made the arrow. V'hinei kosuv, v'samta ha'mitznefes al reisha v'nosatas nezer ha'kedesh al ha'mitznefes. The Torah refers to the tzitz as nezer. Nezer means a crown. I saw in the Maimer that the Rebbe translates the nezer, word nezer also means lashon gilui, that it's revealed. Says the Even Ezra, v'hinei ha'tzitz nikra nezer. The tzitz was called a crown. The kamayu of all of your tzitz nizroi, that on him you could see a crown going on David HaMelech. Says he ule akel migzeiras tzitz. Perhaps the meaning of the word tzitz is David Nira, something which is visible, which is exactly what the Rashbam said. Tzitz is from the word meitzitz. It's very obvious. The first thing you see, you look at a Kohen Godol, is the tzitz. V'kacha meitzitz menacharag. And now he offers you some anatomy. V'da, and you should know. Inside the skull, behind the metzach, behind the forehead, there are 2 holes into the brain. That's what he says. This means not on the face of a person. Inside the brain, inside the skull, behind the metzach, there's 2 holes. Sham Yischaber Keich HaChamish HaRikshis, which connect to the 5 rikshes. I don't know what rikshes means. They're not the 5 senses. I don't know what they are. They're 5 responses of some sort. V'sham Keich HaDmus, and right there, in other words, in the front of the brain, behind the forehead, is Keich HaDmus. Keich HaDmus means the source of imagination. V'sham Tachal HaMachshava, which is where people begin to think and fantasize. Right? Human beings have an ability to analyze, to think something through. Not just to react, but to think something through. And the beginning of thinking something through is to be able to use your imagination. In Sifrei Machshava, in Jewish theological works, imagination is considered an incredibly important part of the neshama. The Rambam writes that one of the prerequisites to being a Navi is to have a very good nefesh hamadama, a good imagination. The Chayr imagination is the opposite of Nevuah, because imagination is Baba Maisis and Nevuah is Emes. But imagination does not have to be Baba Maisis. Imagination means an ability to visualize. And the Rambam holds, the Rambam writes, there's many different days, the Rambam writes, that a person has 5 nefashos. Others say 3, others say 1. The Rebbeinu B'chai is all Arichas and Bereshus. But the Rambam says nefesh has 5 nefashos. And I think the 4th nefesh is the nefesh hamadameh. The 3rd is nefesh haregesh, is the soul of emotion. The 5th is the nefesh haseichel, is the soul of creativity and abstract reasoning. The 4th is nefesh hamadama. Nefesh hamadama means the ability of a person to use their imagination is considered superior to the emotional skill of a person. The 1st is nefesh hazon, nefesh ha'ikol, which is the soul, the function of the metabolic function that we don't even pay attention to. And I forgot what the 2nd is at the moment. But nefesh hamadame, Rambam writes Barichas about this, that imagination is very, very, it's a sophisticated thing. Using your imagination, having a good imagination, which doesn't mean fantasy, it means to visualize things, is considered a very sophisticated nefesh, and it's the step before machshava, to actually think about things and analyze them. Because you have an imagination, you can use it in a constructive way, in a focused way. So the Ibn Ezra says, Al Kain Kosav Al Tzitz, Lotus is Aveina Kadoshim. The tzitz was placed on the person's forehead to stand directly above the place in the person's body where the imagination and the thought are rooted. Because the idea of the tzitz was to atone for tumas mikdash v'kadishav, for avedis, for tumah associated with karbanis. And when it comes to karbanis, machshava matters. You know how it works in Judaism? How does it work in Judaism? In Judaism it works, what you do counts, what you say doesn't mean anything. If I tell you, I promise I'm giving you $1 million. Give me that pen as a gift and I'll give you tomorrow $1 million. And it comes tomorrow, I tell you I gave $5. I'm keeping the pen, I'm going to give $1 million. There's nothing you can do. Because words have no power. Words have no power. Api halacha, words are not, it's called asmachta. Someone uses words has no power unless you make a kinyan, you do an act. Okay? There's an exception. When are words powerful? When you make something into a korban. When you make something a korban, words are as powerful as actions compared to another person. But once you've already made it holy, not only words matter, thoughts matter. If a kohen has a machshavas psul, in the various stages of bringing the korban, you have 4 avodas, right? You have whatever it is, you have zrika, and you have hakrava, and you have shchita, and kabbalah, and hilacha, and zrika. Shechting, gathering the blood, carrying the blood, and spraying the blood. And then with the eminim also, you have to bring him on the vech. If he has a machshavas psul, the korban is puzzle. And it's in your thought. So in other words, in normal rishus, only actions matter. In bringing things into the Beis HaMikdash, words matter. In the Beis HaMikdash, thoughts matter. So the tzitz was meratz and mechaper al chet b'machshava. It's a little different. We spoke before Aveina Kodeshim Tumeh. The Evaneder says Aveina Kodeshim al chet b'machshava. You thought a thought. You're not supposed to think when you're bringing a korban. The tzitz sat right on top of the keich hamadameh. And the keich hamachshava, the imagination, because it atoned for the chas v'shalom, the mistakes that somebody made associated with machshava. Sometimes it's not correctable. A person that makes a mistake, a kohen comes to a guy and says, listen, you brought a korban, I have to tell you, I had a bad machshava. I forgot that it was a korban chatas, and I thought that's a korban shlomim. Got to bring another carbon. Nothing you can do. It's cost geld. The only shaila is whether you could sue the kohen, right? That's hezek sheini nikir. Hezek sheini nikir, you can't pay. You can't prove the damage. It's not something which is evident. A hezek sheini nikir, if you do damage to another person and the damage is invisible, it's not so poshut that you can sue him. You have to be able to see it. Yeah. You have to bring another carbon. Okay, I'm sorry, I had a bad machshava. So the tzitz was maratza on such psulim. Mistame doesn't mean psulim which are not correctable. Mistame means eidel let a psul. But in any case, this is the opinion of the Even Ezra. So we have now a translation of Akedesh Hashem that it means Yidden. Translation of the word tzitz means something which is very, very obvious. And two insights into Lachaf Aravein HaKadosh. One is that it atoned for a tumas hatoheim, a tumah that you didn't know about. And the other is it's machaper for chet b'machshava, a sin in thought, which is why it was placed on the metzach, which is directly opposite where the person's imagination is. Got it? Now the Even Ezra Kotzer. Now I'd like to tell me what he is saying here. The back of the page 1, near the bottom, it says V'yasisa tzitz zok the megzeres betzitzis roishi. Page 1, the lower left. What does tzitzis roishi mean? The hair on my head. What does tzitzis mean? Why are tzitzis called tzitzis? Because they're a fringe. They're an edge, and they're only threads. So here it's a whole new type of the word tzitz. In the Even Ezra Ha'aruch, he translated tzitz like the Rashbam. The tzitz means something which you see. Here he translates tzitz as a fringe, a breg, a ktsei, an edge. What's the pshat? Leave it to your local rabbi. But it's a very different translation of the word. It's as if you were to say the edge of the Kohen Godol is tzitz. The breg, the ktsei, the edge of the Kohen Godol, the end of the Kohen Godol was tzitz. You'll see later in the Rabbeinu B'chaya, where he speaks of Pikabola. He says tzitz is either the lowest of the 10 spheres or the highest of the Olamus. And it's consistent with this. Tzitz means an edge. The Rabbeinu B'chaya is going to give two translations. Either the tzitz is the lowest of the 10 spheres, so it's the lowest edge, or tzitz is the highest of the galgalim. The tzitz is the highest of the rikiyim. So it's the highest edge. In either case, tzitz means a ktsei, a breg. And that's the connotation, tzitzis reishi. The end of the head, the end of the Kohen Godol was the tzitz. If you will, the highest point of the Kohen Godol was the tzitz. That's how it's translated. It's a whole different translation of the word. And understand that this is the beauty. These little subtleties become very significant as you develop it in later mafarsh. Okay? Now page 2 again at the bottom. Okay, he doesn't have, that's enough. And then he said there was Masakeh Chet B'machshava. That's it. Enough of the Even Ezra. Now, another diuk is the word tamid. It says V'hayal mitzchei tamid. It'll be on his forehead all the time. And of course, all the Mefarshim struggle with the word tamid. Tamid means literally he sleeps in the tzitz also. So there's different opinions. Some say that the tzitz was meratza afilu and then al mitzchei, that the tzitz could atone for a sin even if the Kohen Gadol wasn't wearing it. And others say tamid means anytime he wore it. It gets interesting, and we're going to leave it. The Chizkuni touches on it. That's enough. Now on page 4, you have two medrashim. Okay, the second medrash I'm not going to read with you because it's take me a very, very long time to develop the Havana of that medrash. But the first one I want to read at least in part. Page 4 on the right. It says V'hayal meitzach Aaron. It'll be on the forehead of Aaron. V'hayal mitzchoi. You see? Amar Ab Simon. Kshem shakabadas mechaprim, as just as the sacrifices atone, kacha b'godah mechaprim v'chuli. It says in the Ababanel explains it very bariches. Every one of the big day kohuna atoned for a different sin. There were 8 garments that Kohen Gadol wore. They atoned for 8 different sins. For which sin did the tzitz atone? So we already know it atones for tumah. We also know it atones for chet b'machshava. Here goes 2 more atonements. Tzitz. There's man da omer az eponim. One opinion the tzitz atones for chutzpaniks. Or man da omer ala magadfim. And another says tzitz atones for blasphemers. For people who shoot off their mouths without any sense of responsibility. Klap the Eibush. People are not careful with their use of words. the Metzach, you'll see it later on in Mitzvah Hashem. You'll see it later in the Maimir. Hashem will help him. We'll get to the Maimir. The forehead is a place of chutzpah. The forehead represents chutzpah, and the tzitz on the forehead was a counteract to chutzpah. That's what azus means. Arrogance. The Jew's supposed to be humble. Arrogance is liyumazeh, and megatva means a person who's so arrogant and so chutzpahdik that he shoots off his mouth. And the tzitz could be atoning also for that. So the tzitz is already atoning for 4 possible things, and we're not finished yet. There's many, many more opinions. Then Rabbi say on page 5 you have a Rambam. Now I want to make it clear, this is not a Pirush from the Rambam. This is the Pirush of the Rambam's son, Avram ben Rambam. However, he himself testified that this was his father's commentary. His father told him this Pirush, or to learn with him Chumash, and he wrote it down. I heard once that the Rambam said that he wrote a Pirush. Rambam wrote Sefer Yad HaChazaka, wrote a Pirush on Mishnayos. We have a Pirush on Rambam and some Mesechtas of Shas also. And the Rambam wrote, as he's talking that the Rambam was going to write a Pirush on Chumash. And why did he not write it? Kvar higdimani atzarfati. The Frenchman beat me to it. You must understand that Rashi passed away 30 years before Rambam was born. The Rambam was a co-generationalist of the Rashi's grandchildren. You understand? The Rashbam, Rashi's grandson, was older than the Rambam by many years. No, what am I talking about? Rabbi Tam, Rashi's grandson, the younger grandson, was himself 35 years older than Rashi. Rambam was a contemporary of Rashi's great-grandchildren, or even great-great-grandchildren. It was an incredible amount of time. So the Rambam never mentions Rashi, you know. The Taisus never mentions one place in Shas, the whole Shas. The Taisus mentions Haram Bamzal, Haravenu Moshe Bamzal, Ben Maimon Zal. Later the Shainim quote the Rambam Nachanan. Even the Taisus doesn't quote the Rambam. But anyway, the thing which is very, very obvious about this Pirush, that every single chance that Rambam gets, he argues with the Rashi. Whether we saw Rashi or not, but every shtickle that Rambam is arguing with the Rashi. But remember, this is not a Pirush of Rambam, this is a Pirush of Avram HaNogid. That's what he was called. Avram ben Rambam was a Nogid. He was a spokesman on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Now, we're not going to read it all. We're just going to read little pieces of it. The first thing, I'll just tell you orally, that there's actually 2 opinions about the tzitz. And the Rambam brings both these opinions in Sefer HaYad. One opinion is the opinion we learned before, that Kodesh was on one line, Hashem was on another. And there's another opinion that was written on one line. And there's a famous sikha from the Rebbe, which I didn't put into the stack, where the Rebbe has a kasha. The Gemara says, Rebbe Elazar ben Yankiv says, I was in Rome, and I saw the tzitz, and Kodesh Hashem was written on one line. And we don't pass them like this, Rebbe Elazar ben Yankiv. So the Welt fragt Akash, I don't understand. The man saw the tzitz, for heaven's sake. Das gesehen mit seinen fleischlichen Augen. But he's a liar. Rebbe Elazar ben Yankiv sheikhs a mistake. And we don't pass him like him. It doesn't make any sense. So the Rebbe has a whole arichas. And of course this question is asked by 1,000,001 people. The Rambam paskins that it's allowed to be written on one line, but ideally it should be written on 2 lines. And the Rebbe says there probably were many tzitzes. Probably many, many more than one. Just like the Arch of Titus has a menorah that's completely wrong. They did a poor imitation of the original menorah because there were many menorahs in the Beis HaMikdash, not just one, for other purposes, for decorative purposes. And it's conceivable that the Romans took not the real tzitz, but an imitation or a supplemental tzitz or a second tzitz and so forth and so on. And therefore we follow the Kabbalah in spite of the Eidos. We follow the tradition that we have, even though there was a witness who saw the tzitz in a different bechina, in a different nation. And then he says, what's Kedesh LaHashem? He says what you says. The Kedesh Hashem goes on the Kohen Godol. Second arrow, V'omru. And they said, Sha'akini v'akavona kan b'Kedesh. Kedesh LaHashem, holy to God. Who is holy to God? Ala Loivish, the one wearing it. When a Kohen Godol wears the tzitz, his kedusha, his helik. Now, you must understand something. When you read about the Beis HaMikdash, it's quite vague and not always clear and not always understandable. But remember that there are several levels. The first level is called Tahir. Hamenoira HaTahira, Hashulchan HaTahir. The vessels of the Beis HaMikdash are not called holy, they're called pure. The Karbanis are called Kodesh. Holy is higher than pure. And then of course, there's V'haya HaMizbeach, Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies. So when the Beis HaMikdash was built, it was creating an ideal environment for the Shechina Koyacha, for the Eibishter, also the Mitzvah Shechanti B'Seicham. So the house itself was pure. The stuff in the house wasn't only pure, it was holy. I always give you that mashal. The mashal for purity would be water. You can have clean water and dirty water, pure olive oil and dirty olive oil, pure wine. The mashal for holy is fire and light. There's no such thing as dirty fire and light. It's above the realm of pure and impure. It's holy, it's removed. And the Holy of Holies is Nachechet. So the Torah says that Kohen Godol, by himself he was pure. And when he put on the big day kahuna, it's Kedesh Lashem. The Kohen Godol became a shtik fire. He became a piece of holiness. Like I always tell you, why Rebbe Shaitman Kveid Kedushas. Kveid Kedushas Admur, right? When I grew up, I thought it was Chav Kuf Admur. What is Chav Kuf? We never asked. We were embarrassed that we didn't want to show we don't know. You call a human being holy. Holy is not humanly attainable. You cannot make yourself holy. Pure you can make yourself, and you must make yourself. And there are many Yidden who were Tahir. Kedusha is not Stama Tzaddik. It's a high Madrege of Tzaddik, and it's a Matana from the Meibishn. By yourself you can't become Kodesh. So the Kohen Godol put on a tag that said, when I wear this tag, Kodesh LaHashem, it testified about the wearer. The Kohen Godol wore the Tzitz. Was the last thing he put on, B'Pashtus. The last thing he put on was his hat, the turban, and after the turban came the Tzitz. And the Tzitz said, Kodesh LaHashem, that the Kohen Godol is holy. Next arrow, near the bottom of the page, V'nasa Aaron V'gema claim, this means to say that Kishu Leifshe, when he wore it, Yechaper Alavein, he would atone for his sins, Sheyera B'kilkul Shi'una B'kotchim B'taro Kiyetz. If there would be a problem with the kotchim becoming impure, tummy, because of keverat haim and so forth, the Kohen Godol was metired by wearing the tzitz. Okay, so the Rambam's opinion is it was only in the time that he wore it. There's different opinions in Shas and so forth. Now, page 6 and 7 is Rabbeinu B'chaya. Page 6 is from our Pasha, Pashas Tetzaveh, and page 7 is from Pashas Pekudei. Now, how did I become a genius to look at Pashas Pekudei? Because Rabbeinu B'chaya told me to look. So I looked. Now, he offers us the most distinct interpretation of the tzitz. Because what he does, he doesn't simply explain the meaning of the tzitz. He puts the tzitz on a pedestal. It's different. There were 7 garments and a tachshit. And a piece of jewelry, an adornment, an ornament. He wore 7 garments and a tachshit, right? You said Pasach Eliyahu on Friday, right? Onto the pikas. Eser tikunin vekarin and lahein asar siron. What is the meaning of the word tikunin? Tikun. So sometimes, usually the word tikkun is translated as a malbush, as a garment, but it's called levush hamiyuchad. And sometimes the word tikkun is translated as the word tachshit, a piece of jewelry. The difference between a garment and a piece of jewelry is that a piece of garment, even if it's incredibly one with the wearer, usually garments cover. Why do garments cover? Because they're not you. They're separate from you, right? Your shirt, your outfits, even though the Chazal say they honor, they decorate a person, they're separate from a person, right? Except for the body. The body is a garment with the soul. But there's a very big difference between the relationship between the body and the soul and your shirt and your body. Because the body is one with the soul. The body is total if the person's only healthy. There's no will, the body has no separateness from the soul, right? And that's why you can't change it. You can change your shirt, you can't change your goof. Because even though the goof is a levush to the neshama, it's a levush hamiyuchad. So usually the word tikkun means a malbush. So even a levush hamiyuchad, which is like the goof is one with the neshama, the goof is still ma'al u'mas, it still covers over the neshama. But a tachshit, a piece of jewelry, only reveals. So there's 7 big day kahuna, 7 outside to the Kohen Godol. And we learned last year that there's 3 madregas to the big day kahuna, Malchus, Atzilus, and Kesed. The tzitz is not a beged, it's a tachshit, it's an adornment. In other words, it doesn't cover over the holes of the Kohen Godol, it reveals it, it makes it sparkle. So the Rabbeinu Bechaya puts the tzitz on a pedestal, he separates it from the other begodim. So now let's read what he says. V'hinei hatzitz, my second arrow, the tzitz of Bechal Shmeina Big Day Kahuna, it's amongst the 8 garments that Kohen Godol wore. V'einei beged aval hu tachshit. You should know it's not a garment, it's a tachshit. What does that mean? It's a decoration. It's an adornment. It's a piece of jewelry. And there's a big difference between jewelry and clothing. Page 6. Second arrow, right? V'hinei hatzitz of Bechal Shmeina Big Day Kahuna, right? Ve'einei beged, it's not a garment. Aval hu tachshit, it's a piece of jewelry. Okay? And the fact that consistently we speak about Shmeina Big Day Kahuna, that the Kohen Godol wore 8, it's meaning it's the majority. Because actually he didn't have 8 garments, but he had 7 garments. Ki hashiva mehem heim begodim, only 7 of them were garments. The 8th was not a garment, it was a piece of jewelry. And again, there's an incredible difference between translating tikkunim lashon malbush and tikkunim lashon tachshitim. You understand? The tzitz was in a whole different madrega than the other 7 begodim, and he explains it al pi kabbalah. You should understand as follows. The 7 garments of the Kohen correspond to the 7 heavens. What do we know about the heavens? We know about the heavens that there's a concept called, right, right, or nubat lashon reichev aravis. The Eibishter created his world like a throne room, and he sits atop it. So just like you have a description of the supernal chariot, the Eibishter created the physical universe in the image of the spiritual realms, right? Just like in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Aron HaKein, the Holy Ark, has these 2 cherubs with their wings extended, and the Shekhinah sits on the wings, Yeshev HaKruvim, he sits on the cherubs of the Kohen Godol, of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The same is true, the universe has layers. And above the 7 or 8 or 9 layers of heaven, the Eibishter sits. Right? Find in Sifri Machshava that you have Galgalim. You have 7 Galgalim, you have an 8th Galgal, you have a 9th Galgal, a Galgal Asiri. And the Galgal Asiri is called, I have to remember. I forgot the Lashon, but it means to say the Neshama of the creation, the soul of the universe. There's a Lashon that they use. Something like Seichel HaPoyel. The wisdom that's involved in creation. In other words, the way the Eibishter created the universe is that there's layers, like angels, and the Eibishter sits on top. Now, of course, everybody understands that this doesn't mean that the Eibishter needs to have a place to sit. It means forget. We want the Eibishter to sit. We need for him to sit. So we create for him a chair, Yeshev Tehillas Yisrael. We create a place to bring the Eibishter to us. Right? Sitting by the Eibishter means coming close to us. So we create a seat. And the seat is the different heavens, the different layers. So the other Big Day Kahuna were the 7 heavens, and the tzitz represents the Shekhinah itself. That's how he translates it. Which is, by the way, quite consistent with the Pirush HaKotzer of the Even Ezra, who says one of the word tzitz, the edge, tzitzis reishi. Remember? I find it quite incredible that the Even Ezra, who is Mr. Chkira, Mr. Seichel, says so many things which are so oizgehalten al pi kabbalah. This is a hezbollah al pi kabbalah. So he says, "V'dava vein," and understand that no came shiva rekiyim. Or b'seif say the tzav of Ayloch zeh. In the end of Pasha Tzav, the Beinu B'chai actually tells you which beged is for which one of the 7 heavens. V'atzitz shalzov shabereishi eilal kulam. The tzitz is higher than all of them, and it was made of gold. Gold, as opposed to silver, is gvura. Gvura shows on tzimtzum. Silver, chesed, shows on gilui. Gvura shows on tzimtzum. What does it mean? How kvayachal, the shechina, is mitzamtzum itself to have a connection to this world. So if the 7 other garments represent the hierarchy of angels that are setting the stage for the Shekhinah to sit. The tzitz is the Shekhinah. Why is it gold? Because the Eibush has to, Gvura has to contract himself to be able to sit. So the tzitz becomes the ideal, the greatest of all the big Kahuna. This is the Rabbeinu Bechaya's word. Okay, but we're not done. V'yirmez al kulam amida shekosav aleh kol gvuda bas melach pnima mishpat seizov levusha. He brings the pasuk called gvuda bas melach pnima. What does that mean, called gvuda bas melach pnima? That a princess, that a daughter of royalty is hidden, is tzniistic, but the rest of the pasuk says mishpat seizov levusha. So he translates that gvuda bas melach. What's bas melach in Kabbalah? Bas melach is malchus of Atzilus. The daughter is malchus, and mishpat seizov, her seat, is Mishpat Seizov, goes on the tzitz. That's how we translate it. V'hi Asiris, it's the Sfira of Malchus, the lower to the 10 Sfiras. The other big day Kahuna are lower. And the tzitz is Malchus. You follow? So the other big day Kahuna represent Levushim, which are Mailam Umaster. They're not Sfiras. They're what we call in Kabbalah in Echkira Nivdalim, like Malachim. The tzitz is the last of the Sfiras. V'alkein tzitz Shalzah, that's why it's made of gold, as I mentioned to you before. And that's why it says Kedesh Lashem. Kedesh Lashem goes on who? On the Eibishter himself. Why? Because the holiness of Hashem rested on the Kohen Godol because of the tzitz. Not because of the Chayshon, not because of the Ephod, not because of the Me'il, because of the tzitz. You understand? So then you have a third translation in Kedesh Lashem. The first translation in Kedesh Lashem goes on Yidden. Second translation in Kedesh Lashem goes on the Kohen Godol. And the third one goes from the tzitz itself. This is where God meets man, on the forehead of the Kohen Godol. Kedesh Lashem, it's very exact. Okay? But then the Rabbeinu Bechaya says the truly creative thing. Listen to this. Uksiv v'haya al meitzach Aharon. It says in the beginning of the pasuk, it would sit on the forehead of Aaron. And then it would say, v'haya al mitzchei tamid. It would be on his forehead all the time. So why does it say twice? You know what the answer is? It's Gvaldik. This is my understanding of Aaron. Aaron is wearing the breastplate on his forehead. Yeah, but you have to understand. Just like there's a physical human being down here wearing the big day kahuna, and the peak, the highest one of the big day kahuna is the tzitz, which is where he meets the Shekhinah. Kvayachol, the Eibishter is wearing the big day kahuna. But when the Eibishter wears the big day kahuna, it's all backwards. The tzitz is the lowest. It's all upside down. Why? Because the tzitz of the Eibush that touches the tzitz of Aaron HaKohen. What allows that the tzitz of the Eibush to touch the tzitz of Aaron HaKohen? Because tzitz is Asiris. It's always Malchus. To Aaron, to the person, it's the highest level. The tzitz, the edge. And to the Eibush, also the tzitz is the edge, but it's the opposite edge. So how do you read the pasuk? V'haya meitzach Aaron. It'll be on Aaron HaKohen's forehead. Could a Kohen Godol wear a tzitz 24/7, 365? Impossible. V'haya al mitzchai goes on the Eibishter's metzach, and that's why it says tamid. The Eibishter doesn't have to sleep. V'haya al meitzach Aaron. The Aaron HaKohen wears the tzitz, and as a result, Magad Avara LeYankev Chuk Mishpat Al Yisrael. Weißt doch, Hakadosh Baruch Hu maniach tefillin. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is called the Eibishter Elokeinu Keinu. It says in Chazal. The Eibishter is a Kohen Gadol. There's a whole shaila. You can become tummy and so forth. And the Eibishter's tzitz is the lowest of the big day kahuna. By us, the tzitz is the highest madrega, and it's gold because that's where Lakus meets Nivra. By the Eibishter, it's gold because it goes on Tzimtzum. And the first meitzach is Aretz. Doesn't say Tamid. Kohen Gadol can't wear tzitz all the time. But later in the same pasuk, it's Mitzchai. His goes on the Eibishter. And the Eibishter wears the tzitz all the time. Because you know, Kohen Godol udugma. Kohen Godol is a symbol. And Gam Kol Begodav Shuleiv B'Shas Aveda Hinehem Dugma. The garments he's wearing also a symbol. What do they represent? He is an inverse image, is an equal and opposite image of what's going on Lamaila. Right? Like it says about the Beis HaMikdash. That the Mikdash Shal Matas B'Chuv and the Mikdash Shal Maila, the same is true about the Kohen Godol. And the place where the Kohen Godol down here meets the Kana Rabba Lamaila is the tzitz. It's the highest point of the physical Kohen Godol and the lowest point of the material Ruch Nizik Kohen Godol. And the Ruch Nizik Kohen Godol, it's Mitzchei Tamid. It's always. Ulekach timtza shehizker akosa by David ashtei zikaron lezikaron. Gam b'cheish from lezikaron that the Eibush should remember lifnei Hashem Tomid, and so forth. Now turn to page 7, and I'm going to show you one more vod. I'm just going to complete the thought. We have, the first point is that the Kohen Godol is wearing 7 garments which go on the 7 Akiyim, and the Tzitz is the Shechina, right? Kedesh La'avayim. But we also have another pshat. V'yesh oid. The last 4 lines of the paragraph. I don't want to read the beginning. The beginning is which beged is for which one of the Akiyim. There's a plus. You see where I'm reading? Page 7, near the bottom of the paragraph. V'yesh oid b'shiva shayam Moshe malbishan. Moshe would put the big kahuna on Aaron HaKohen. In the Maimon later, Mitchem, you'll see where the Rebbe is medayik. How come Moshe makes the tzitz and Aaron wears it? The Rabbeinu Bechaya explains it up in Kabbalah. Aaron HaKohen is a dogma, right? He's a physical man that represents Nivroim, the spiritual creations, and the tzitz, the holiest point of Aaron HaKohen, reaches the lowest point of the Shechina, Kedesh LaHashem. But Moshe puts the tzitz on Aaron HaKohen. What happens when Moshe puts it on Aaron HaKohen? He's connecting to the Eibishter's tzitz. And look what he says. Malbisha Adem is the Sheva Idum, goes in the 7 Sfiras of Atzilas, which are all Elakus. And then he goes into the details. I'm skipping the details. And V'hashvi, the last line, Hatzitz Shoyesh Azov Hiyakala. When the Eibishter's Big Day Kahuna, it's backwards. The Kohen Godol's Big Day Kahuna, the tzitz is the highest. The Eibishter's Big Day Kahuna, the tzitz is, and that's the pshat what he said in the previous page. There's Metzach Aaron and there's Mitzchei Tomid. Because the Kohen Godol wears the tzitz, even if it's not all the time, only as much as he can afford, Mitzchei, the Eibishter's Metzach, it's Tomid L'zikar Lefnei L'Shem L'Chaper Abnei Yisrael. I think this is a gewaldige pshat. It's worth just to hear this Rabbeinu Bechaya. Oise gewähnt. Nicht azoi. Even if you don't agree, nod, because I'm a very sensitive guy. Now, on page 8, you have the Ralbag. The Ralbag has pages and pages and pages on the Begadim Bechlal. So when I started out, I had one plan, and as the class developed, I changed my plans. I just want to show you one line of Ralbag, left side of the page by the arrow. V'hinei atielas hamagia. What we learn, what we benefit. By the way, these 2 pages are not contiguous. You see these 2 lines, they're separated probably 8 pages apart. The right side of the page is in Pirush HaMilas. The left side of the page is in Hatayelies. As I explained to you many times how the Ralbag's Pirush works. Why does it say on the Tzitz Kedesh LaHashem? Who lahayr is to teach? All of these garments, Heim kulam lahayr, the purpose of all of them, elasagas, to reach intellectually el mashu kedesh LaHashem, what's holy to the Eibishter, v'heimatzuras ha'shefes mimenu, the form which come from the Eibishter, a little different than the Rabbeinu Bechaya. The Kohen Godol is wearing clothing. The highest of those clothes is the tzitz. So on the tzitz it said holy to God. What are we saying? Make yourself holy to God. Devote your entire life to your mind, and your entire mind to what's holy to the Eibishter. What's holy to the Eibishter? The tzuras. That means the malachim. So the Ralbag splits it. The Kohen Godol was a physical person, and all of the garments represented devoting yourself to understanding higher. What's higher than malachim? What's higher than the malachim? The Shechina. The Rabbeinu Bechaya says that the Begadim themselves were the malachim, and the tzitz represented the Shechina. The Ralbag splits it a little bit more, that the Begadim represented something lower, and that above the tzitz was the malachim, and above the malachim is the Eibishter. But the tzitz is the highest, even according to this Ralbag, the same is true. It's the highest thing a Kohen wore, and it represents the idea of looking heavenward. So if I had to tell you what's the difference between the Ralbag and the Rabbeinu Bechaya, I would say this. Rabbeinu Bechaya sees the tzitz as the place where the Shechina comes down, and the Ralbag sees this as the place where a Jew has to look up. It's most interesting. It's most interesting. Now on page 9, 10, and 11 you have a Abarbanel. I mean, the variety of interpretations is mind-blowing. The Abarbanel has so much to say. And we could sit in this Abarbanel for 2 hours. Ich weise nur ein kurzer Wort. if you'll see on page 10, I circled. I really did you a favor. I read all these small type. I read it all. He goes through each one of the 8 garments and teaches you what Midah teaches you. The Ksenes, the Michnasayim, the Avnei, the Mitznefes, that's all the second column on page 10. And on page 11 he starts talking about the 4 remaining garments. And at the very bottom of Reish Pe'al, first column, here, the end of the 3rd column from the right, on page 10, he says, 7 lines from the bottom, V'omnom ha'choshen v'atzitz shneim hoyu mefarsam in hanabu v'ruach ha'kedesh. The point of the tzitz and the choshen was to reveal that Jews have inspiration from the Eibishter, ruach ha'kedesh. The me'il was about emunah. The ephod was about celebrating the Jewish people, and the choshen and the tzitz in different ways demonstrated to the world that the Jewish people are zeicha, that the Shechina should rest in them, and they should have a Gilei HaNevuah. And the choshen was on the chest, and the tzitz is on the forehead. It's different. They found him in Nevuah, and of course he goes into a whole arichis to explain the word Kedesh Lashem, holiness to the Eibishter, and he explains that there were many, many other magicians who had various techniques and approaches to how to know spiritual things, called Ksamim, Koismim, and Menachshim, Ma'onyanim, all kinds of magicians, and all of their ways were, like the Rambam says, Loshan Ma'at Bar B'Toich HaTeven. They're based like 30% accurate, 40% accurate, and we have Nevuah, which is 100% accurate. So since the tzitz goes on the Yin of Ruach HaKedesh, it says Kedesh Lashem. That this mechanism of connecting to the Eibishter is holy. Right, like it says in the Torah, V'ata loichein, novi b'kirbecha me'achecha komeini, eilav tishmon. You're not allowed to go to the Me'einanim and the Kesmim because it's sheker, and it's dimyin, and it's cause of. So you shouldn't go to all these magicians, but you should go to a prophet. I don't understand. If you're not supposed to go to these magicians, you should go to the Eibishter himself. The novi is Kedesh Lashem. So it said on the Tzitz Kedesh Lashem to show that the inyan of Ruach HaKedesh by Yidden is real. It's not a dimyan, it's emes. This is a 4th translation of Kedesh Lashem, where the Kedesh Lashem goes on Yidden, or on the Kohen Godol, or on the Shechina, or on the fact that Yidden have Ruach HaKedesh. And he has much, much more. Much, much more. It's Gvaldik, Anashir. Enough. Okay, the Shalah I mentioned. The Shach has a really nice word. The Shach has a really nice word. But we don't have time. I want to get to the Maimer, page 14. Now I want you to know that there's numerous Maimorim on the Pasuk Vasisa Tzitz. In Teira 8 alone, you have Arichas on the Tzitz. Kimat more than any other the big Dekahuna. More than the Arichas in Teira 8. I mamish looked through all Maimorim of the Rebbe, of the Frierdiker Rebbe, of the Rebbe Marash, the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Alter Rebbe to find the Maimer on Mail. I couldn't find it. I know it exists. I can't find it. So by choice I went back to the Tzitz, which was a no-brainer for me. If I would have started with the Tzitz, I would have saved 35 minutes. Or ich bin an action. You understand? I also have Jewish blood. It's a gewaldige Maimer. And we don't have time to do the Maimer in its entirety. So I'll tell you the basic nekudas of the questions, and then we'll learn the answer. But I want you to understand something. If you hear this Maimer's answer, and you get the details, and you don't get the point, you're missing the whole richness. The richness is not in the details. The richness is in the bottom line. You got to get the nekudah. So tune in, okay? He has a bunch of questions. Okay? First of all, what was the tzitz? Why was it on the forehead? What is the meaning of Metzach Aaron and Mitzchei Tamid, and Aaron's forehead and his forehead all the time? And why did it say that Moshe had to make it? Moshe makes it, tzitz, not on where is it? What's the emphasis on Moshe making it? Additionally, it says you should make a tzitz, and it says separately you should carve into it the word Kedesh Lashem. It seems like two separate things. Making the tzitz and carving into it Kedesh Lashem. Another question is, the tzitz went from ear to ear. Tzitz went from ear to ear. And the Kedesh Lashem was only on his forehead. So the Mefarshim, the Chazal ask, so did it go from ear to ear or only on its forehead? And they answer, the gold went from ear to ear, but the words Kedesh Hashem were only against his forehead. These are the diyukim that the Rebbe has. So we go to the left side of page 14 and we learn the Maimer. Vezehu v'yasisa tzitz. Dehinei. Tzitz hu lashon estaklos. Tzitz means to look, to see. Milashesh meitzitz menacharakin, to see through a crack. So he doesn't translate like we translated before. Tzitz, it's the most obvious thing, you can see it right away. He says, no. Tzitz means to see through a crack. And he therefore translates that tzitz is v'huinyan mazlayu chazi. The word tzitz means something you cannot see. You see it through a crack, which goes on the yetzam neshama, the pintliyid, dainu sheidish and makar neshama, the source of the neshama. The word tzitz doesn't mean to see, it means to see through a crack. So tzitz means that level of the neshama which is not overt. You can only see it through a crack, which is the yetzam neshama. On the other hand, v'gam tzitz meloshen ha'ara v'gilu k'ma yatzitz nizrei. The word tzitz also connotes fully revealed. In other words, v'hu'in, it's the idea of his galus sheidash hamakar neshama. The source of the neshama should be fully revealed. B'chinas ava rabbe shalamayla mitam vadas. In other words, though gilu the sheidash hamakar, the essence of the neshama should be revealed. So, first translation of tzitz means the forehead sees and reveals the etzem of the neshama of the Kohen Godol. And it's fully revealed because of the tzitz. Now, we've had other opportunities to talk about metzach, the forehead, in different contexts, in the Parshas Yudim and other places. Maimonic Hasidus make a very big deal out of the forehead. Because when they talk about the forehead, they observe two diametrical opposites. On the one hand, the forehead covers. The brain is full of holes. Right? You have in Kabbalah, achap. What's achap? Oizen, choitem, peh. In Kabbalah, achap, oizen, choitem, peh, there's a holes. In and out of the head, mishtamche knisa v'yitzir. A higher madege than achap is einayim, the eyes, which are the window to the soul. And then you have the metzach. The metzach has no holes at all. So it shows on a helen v'hester. You can't see anything. On the other hand, you know about the metzach that chochmas adam toyer ponav, the very essence of the person is written on his face. And when you say the essence of the person is written on his face, you mean either the forehead or the cheeks. Why? Because there's no hair. Hair also has holes, just little ones. The eyes and the nostrils and the ears and the mouth are big holes. The hair follicles are shitis, loshen tzimtzum. The metzach and the beis apen, the cheeks, and the forehead, on the one hand they block, on the other hand the very essence of the person glows and radiates on the face. The face means the forehead and the cheeks, and the forehead is even higher than the cheeks. So the Rebbe says, tzitz means to see the essence of the soul which you cannot see. And tzitz means that the essence of the soul is revealed. And they're completely consistent with the very concept of mitzvah, the forehead. A pikabala metzach has gvura, dinim. But there's gvuras of Zohar and there's gvuras of Atik. The gvuras of Zohar, Ma'ila Mamas, the gvuras of Atik are Magala Etzem. The forehead, on the one hand, you see nothing. On the other hand, you're seeing everything. The tzitz represents how something you should not be able to see should be fully revealed. So the two translations of the word tzitz. You're seeing it through a crack, and it's fully revealed. But then it says, you have to carve onto the tzitz words. Right? Now listen. If the tzitz reveals the essence can't be put into words. Ain't that true? So it should be a blank piece of gold. No, there's words. The essence is actually revealed in words, in vessels. It's a third level. The first level of the tzitz is that you're seeing the essence which you shouldn't be able to see. The second idea of the tzitz is that it's fully revealed. And the third level of tzitz, it's actually revealed in words. Just like you know about a Sefer Torah. What do you know about a Sefer Torah? Sefer Torah is white parchment with black letters. Because the Eibush to Sefer Torah was Eish Levana, Eish Chela Gabi Eish Levana, black fire superimposed on white fire, right? But the Eibush to Sefer Torah, the black fire came from the white fire. You didn't add it with a scribe. So the white fire goes on Sevav Kalaman, on the infinity of Elikus. The black letters, which are the Muk of Gevil, each one has to have its own separate space. Shows on a Malakalam, on a lower level. Correct? The same is true of the tzitz. The gold plate of the tzitz is the Gili of Etzem. Like Metzach. Kedesh Lavaya, those words are actually giving form to something that shouldn't have a form. He calls it kelim. So you have 3 steps to the tzitz. First of all, that what's being revealed is actually totally concealed. Second of all, it's fully revealed on the metzach. And third of all, it's even revealed in words, Kedesh LaHashem. And the fact that there's words attached to it gives us an ability to control it. So this is the idea of the tzitz. The tzitz is on the metzach. What's metzach? Metzach is garnished. It's covering over. At the same time, the true essence of a person is revealed on his face, and the same is true l'maylo. And it comes down into Kedesh LaHavaya. Okay? Now, אנחנו מדברים מלמעלה למטה, לא מלמטה למעלה. הקדוש ברוך הוא מתגלה בהמצח, בהמוח, בהמצח של הכהן גדול. ואפילו באויסיס שלו. And I'm reading 6 lines in, the ones that I underlined. The Bechiris, Sheidish, and Neshama. The source of the Neshama, Yah, should be fully revealed. And moreover, it should be revealed by Neshama Melubeshet Beguf, the soul which is in the body. So there's 3 points. The essence, that the essence is revealed, and that the essence is revealed in words, in a limited form, in Kedesh LaHashem. So now, what's Kedesh LaHashem? Her, Rabbeisai. We started off with a question, what is the Pshat Kedesh LaHashem? And we made an assumption that Kedesh LaHashem is higher than the piece of gold. And we're discovering that it's the other way around. The piece of gold is higher than the Kedesh LaHavaya. Because Kedesh LaHashem is translating the Atzmius Dika Kedusha, which is represented by the Tzitz itself. You understand? Kedesh LaHashem is lower than the Tzitz. It's bringing down this Madrega of Gili Elakus, Yatzitz Metzitz Menacharakim, Yatzitz Nizrei into the Isis of Kedesh LaHashem. Now, I don't have time to read on. I'll just tell you that the Rebbe says that the reason it was against your forehead, against the eyes, is because the place where the Esem and Hashem is revealed is connected to Riyah de Chochmah. Seeing is believing. Seeing is connecting to the essence. So the tzitz, which reveals the essence, into the eyes. But the piece of gold itself went from ear to ear, because ear goes on shmi, on hearing. And he translates shmiya lashon Kabbalah seil, ale shmeya mizevach tev. Listen, Kabbalah seil. So he says, because the eye sees, the person hears. Because the eyes of a Yid see the essence of godliness, we're able to have Kabbalah Sel Machashamayim. That's how we translate. So the Kohen Godol wears the tzitz. The words Kedesh LaHashem, what he sees, that connects him to the essence of the Eibishter. Now remember, what is he seeing? He's seeing the words. We understand that the words is actually the lowest madrega of the tzitz. But to the Kohen Godol, that's enough. Because he can't see the etzim, only when it has oisius. And the result is that the tzitz goes me'ezen alezen, that he has shmiyam l'shon Kabbalah seil. So the Rebbe says, the tzitz is the source of connecting to the essence of godliness, and the resultant bittul and Kabbalah seil to the Eibishter. But he adds another very, very profound nekudah. And he says the metzach, the forehead, reveals the essence. But it does not reveal the forehead, the essence, in a sophisticated way. It's not seichel, it's not intellectual, it's not emotional. It's akshanis, it's the essence itself. And he says this is the weapon against Amalek. Because Amalek is chutzpah. And the Amalek's chutzpah is metach, azus. Remember azus metach, chutzpah is in the forehead. The reaction, the le'umazeh of azus metach of Amalek is the tzitz. Because darker from the tzitz you have this koyach to fight with Amalek. You know why? Because in the tzitz is revealed the essence of the Eibishter, but it's not translated into intellectual or an emotional or a sophisticated form. It's the essence of the Eibishter and Eifon of Bittul. In other words, just like you have when you get to Pesach, right? There's godless and there's katnus. What's godless mean? I have amun in the Eibishter because I understand. What's katnus? I have amun in the Eibishter because I don't understand. Hey, lachma anya. Right? What lashon? Hey, lachma anya. Di yud. The Kudatach said that when you eat matzah by the Seid, it's dafka lachma anya, has no taste, you don't understand. What does it say in Chassidus? The katnus abba is greater than the gatless abba. The emunah, which is not connected to seichel, has a milo over the emunah which comes from seichel, and that's the tzitz. The tzitz is the essence of the neshama revealed, but not the etzem neshama revealed in a sophisticated way. The etzem revealed in a simple way. Akshanis, bittel, kabbalah seil, and that's what has the keach to fight with Amalek. And therefore, even though it's on Metzach Aaron, Moshe Rabbeinu has to make it. Because the only one who has the keich to fight with Amalek is Moshe. Anshe Moshe. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was so one with the Eibishter, the chutzpah of Amalek does not dissuade him from his sense of right and wrong, and he's able to defeat Amalek. That's how the Rebbe explains it in the Maimon. Therefore, Moshe makes the tzitz, Aaron wears it on his Metzach, and it's lachapet of Ein Bnei Yisrael. It gives them a koyach to fight with the klipa of Amalek. And there's more here. You'll read it on your own. Yeah. Okay.